Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Random Rewatch. I am your host, Mike, and this is the show where we take an old dusty DVD off the shelf and pop it in and see if the movie held up. And we are doing the classic Independence Day.
It is morning. You wake up.
Hey, come on.
You greet your loved ones. You grab the morning paper. And although it seems like any ordinary day, it isn't. For one extraordinary reason.
A historic and unprecedented event has occurred. The question of whether or not we are alone in the universe has been answered.
This is so cool.
More ships have just arrived over India, England, and Germany.
I really don't think they flew 90 billion light years to come down here and start a fight.
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all!
They're using our own satellites against us. The clock is ticking.
I distinctly remember going out to see this thing. I remember we had like a family cookout or something, Independence Day weekend. I forget exactly which day of the week it was. And then we went out to a midnight showing of this, a whole bunch of us, and we had a great time. And every time that I've seen it, it's become one of those background movies where it's like, if you're scrolling through, these days it's YouTube TV, but if you're scrolling through your screen, your TV app or your cable list and you come across this, chances are you're going to stop and watch it. I know I'm going to stop and watch it, no matter where in the movie it is. But I haven't really sat down and taken a look at this thing as a film, probably since it came out. So it's just kind of always been there. And so I figured I would pull this one out and we would take a look at it and see exactly where we wind up. Now, for this movie, there was an extended version that was released later on. And that's the one that I watched. I'm basically going to be recapping the theatrical version, but I will, kind of let you know when there's a scene that had been dropped in the extended edition. I think they made the right choices for the theatrical edition. Deleted scenes are deleted scenes for a reason. And a lot of times it's just because they don't really add a lot to the story. The extended edition puts an entirely new subplot in, which has to do with Russell Case and his family. We will get to that, but let's dive into where this movie came from and how it was made. So Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin, who was producer and the writer, were out promoting their film Stargate, the James Spader, Kurt Russell sci-fi movie. And someone asked them, do you think the premise of the movie is correct? That like aliens like showed up and seeded mankind or were involved in building of the pyramids or something like that. And they said no, but then I think Roland Emmerich was the one who said, yeah, but imagine if a 15-mile wide spaceship showed up over New York City. Dean Devlin was like, I think we got our next movie. And so that started the whole process going in terms of development of this film. So after Stargate came out, they went out, as directors and producers often do, they went on vacation. Because they just spent, a couple of years of their life making this film. And they went on vacation, I think it was to Mexico, and they started working on the script for this. Now, Devlin did not like the whole, a hiding alien trope where there's, like an aliens are amongst us kind of thing. Or the idea of like spores or something like that, like in Day of the Triffids or Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Or the secret agenda plots, like the aliens are here and we don't really know what they're up to. He wanted to kind of do a straight out, the aliens are here. We know exactly why they're here. There's no hiding them. There's no secret agenda. And how are we going to deal with that? It took them 3.5 weeks to write the script. And they sent it to their agent who put it out. And immediately Universal and 20th Century Fox started fighting over it. And Fox eventually won it. It got greenlit in 1 day, and it started pre-production in 3 days with Roland Emmerich having final cut. Initially, the U.S. military was going to help out with it until they found out that it was talking about Area 51, and they wanted that cut out of the script because it totally doesn't exist. I don't know, can you see sarcasm in a podcast? And when the producers refused to pull that whole section of the film out, then the U.S. military kind of backed out. This film has over 3,000 special effects shots in it, and most of them are done in camera with miniatures and models, forced perspective, things like that. There are definitely computer graphic shots in here. There are definitely compositing shots and matte paintings. It's a whole toolbox of stuff from the 90s. And it was really groundbreaking in its day. And to be honest, even, when you watch it in 4K, a lot of the stuff really, really holds up well. The cinematographer for this film is Carl Walter Lindenlaub, who did do Stargate with Roland Emmerich. He had done other Roland Emmerich films as well, Universal Soldier, Moon 44, Hollywood Monster, and a couple of other German films before that. Music is by David Arnold, who had also worked with Emmerich on Stargate. He would go on to do like Godzilla, Shaft, Too Fast, Too Furious, Four Brothers, Hot Fuzz, 5, I think, James Bond films. I love the score in this movie only because it really, really fits what this movie is trying to do. It's big, it's bombastic, it's patriotic, it's all the things that you would expect out of a movie like this. I don't normally mention production designers, but I will in this case. There were 2 on this film, actually. There was Oliver Scholl and Patrick Tatopoulos. Tatopoulos mainly handled like the creature effects and things like the tentacles and that stuff and the organic ship, while Scholl was the one who handled all the mechanical and architectural sets. And I'm bringing it up because the production design on this film is absolutely fantastic. They built they built twice as many models for this film as for any other film that had ever been made before that, including buildings, streets, aircraft, landmarks, monuments. They built miniatures for the spaceships. One of them was one of the city ships. I think they built a 30-foot version of that. And there was a 12-foot long version of the mothership. They would build the city streets as models and then tilt them upright and then set off the explosions at the bottom so the fireballs would go up and they would shoot them from the top. So, it would look like the fireball was coming down the street when it was actually coming up the street, kind of like a chimney. They built a 10-foot wide model of the White House and then blew it up. Tatopoulos specifically designed the creature suit to look like there was no way that a person could be in it. That's why it's got the tentacles. That's why it's got those funky kind of bird legs. And they didn't want like, a man in a rubber suit kind of vibe. So everything was done. I think that stuff was all done with stop motion. Some of it was done with prosthetics or with puppetry, but like the full body shots, it's just really a unique and fantastic design of the alien. This thing was filmed all over the place. It was filmed in New York City. It was filmed in Utah. It was filmed in Nevada, California, New Jersey. They shot plates, plates are like kind of blank, like cityscapes or something. So they would just shoot like, big shots of New York City or Washington or whatever. And then they could put special effects in on them, or they could use them for green screen backdrops. But they filmed plates in LA and in Washington. They went out to Nevada, out to Arizona to shoot some of the desert sequences. They really, really filmed this thing kind of all over the place, including the Bonneville Salt Flats. The Oval Office set had been built for the movie An American President. It was also used for Nixon. The nuclear submarine set was a reuse of Crimson Tide. And the bomber cockpit was from the movie Broken Arrow. So they reused a lot of assets for this film. All right, so let's get into Independence Day. So we start with a shot of the moon and the Apollo 11 plaque on the moon and the shaking and vibration and a big shadow that comes over the site. And then we cut to an antenna farm in New Mexico at SETI. This is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. They listen for space signals and they start to pick up this signal. The young kid who's manning the overnight desk gets excited and he calls the supervisor. And this is Eric Avari, again from Stargate, and many, many other roles, The Mummy and a bunch of other things. Great character actor, always plays a Middle Eastern, Egyptian, something along those lines, even though he's actually Indian. And he wakes up and they start to analyze the signal and they find out that it's not coming from a distant star system, but it's actually coming from much, much closer.
This better not be another damn Russian spy job.
Boys from Air Traffic Res say the skies are clear.
It's the real thing. A radio signal from another world.
Let's not jump the gun here. You're online in Space Command. They're gonna want to know about. What's with the golf ball? You're gonna kill me here.
Wait, this can't be right. The calculated distance from source is only 375,000 kilometers. It's coming from the moon.
So now we see some military officers and we have the Commandant of the Marine Corps. This is General William Gray, who was played by Robert Loggia, who we saw in the movie Big. He is being informed that something is going on by Dan Lauria, who played Jack Arnold on The Wonder Years. And they find out that this object, which is coming towards Earth, is not a natural phenomenon because it is slowing down to enter Earth orbit. And so now we cut to the White House and we meet President Thomas Whitmore and his chief of staff, Connie Spano. Bill Pullman playing President Whitmore. Pullman started his career as a theater actor and also an acting coach or an acting teacher before making a splash in Hollywood. His major breakthrough obviously came through in 1987 when he played the heroic, scruffy Lone Star in Mel Brooks' legendary sci-fi parody Spaceballs. Through the late 80s, early 90s, he established himself as a really wonderful, versatile character actor and also a leading man. He starred in romantic comedies like Sleepless in Seattle and While You Were Sleeping, where he played some great supporting roles. His performance here in Independence Day really kind of made him, though, kind of a household name and just kind of one of these like cinematic everymen who you could just kind of put into basically any kind of film role or a TV role. Connie is played by Margaret Collin. She started her film career in 1986 in Pretty in Pink, where she played a teacher. Did a couple other films like 3 Men and a Baby, True Believer, Butcher's Wife, before really kind of coming to prominence in this. But she really got her start in 1979 in the soap opera The Edge of Night, and then she did some time on As the World Turns as well. And we see that there's this kind of easygoing way that President Whitmore has. He's kind of teasing with Connie when she's trying to be serious about, political problems.
You stuck to your guns. You were thought of as young, idealistic.
Thanks.
Now, the message has gotten lost. It's just too much politics. It's too much compromise.
Isn't it amazing how quickly everyone can turn against you? It's a fine line between standing behind a principle and hiding behind one. You can tolerate a little compromise if you're actually managing to get something accomplished.
And so we get a call from the Secretary of Defense, and we find out that there's something going on. We don't really hear the other side of the conversation. We see that a satellite crashes into an object in space. And then we're going to cut away to our next scene. There's a lot of this cutting back and forth in this movie. The film's edited, by the way, by David Brenner, who got his start working on Oliver Stone's team. Well, actually, he was an apprentice on Radioactive Dreams, but then he did a bunch of films with Oliver Stone as like an assistant editor or co-editor. Eventually started, I think his first film that he cut himself was Night in the City with Irvin Winkler. And then did Independence Day, did a bunch of other ones, including The Patriot with Roland Emmerich, The Day After Tomorrow with Roland Emmerich, 2012. More recently, he did Batman vs. Superman and Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League for DC. And he did Avatar, The Way of Water and Fire and Ash for James Cameron. So our cut now is to New York City, and we see two men playing chess, and this is Jeff Goldblum and Judd Hirsch playing David Levinson and his father Julius. Goldblum we saw in The Right Stuff. He had a kind of minor role in that. He's kind of well known for his like very eccentric kind of breathless line deliveries and his kind of jazzy, like his jazz-like mannerisms and complete charm. Had a couple of minor roles until 1986, where he really kind of popped out on the screen with his haunting, tragic performance in David Cronenberg's The Fly. And he followed that up by playing Dr. Ian Malcolm in 1993's Jurassic Park with Steven Spielberg. I think we all know that one. He's kind of almost more stunt casting these days. You know, he pops up in something like Thor Ragnarok and everybody's like, oh, there's Jeff Goldblum. Hirsch, on the other hand, a New York actor through and through. He became an absolutely household name in the late 1970s and early 80s by playing Alex Rieger on the classic sitcom Taxi, a role that, by the way, earned him 2 Emmy Awards. More recently, he's been in films like Uncut Gems and earned another Oscar nomination at the age of 87 for an appearance in Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans. Spielberg seems to bring the best out in people, and that's going to come in handy for our next film. That's a little bit of a tease. Hirsch also has an Oscar nomination for his role in Ordinary People as well. Anyway, they're playing chess, and you get an idea of the kind of banter and relationship that these two have, especially with Hirsch bringing like this kind of old school Jewish American humor and warmth and fatherly pride that kind of balances out all the intense action that is in the rest of this film.
For those cups to decompose.
If you don't move soon, I'm going to start to decompose. Listen, David, I've been meaning to talk with you. It's nice that you see me so much now, but...
Don't start, Dan.
I'm only saying it's been, what, 4 years? You still wearing a wedding band?
3 years.
All right, 3, 4, you're divorced. Come on, move on. This is not healthy.
No, this is not healthy. The smoking is not healthy.
And so David goes to his job, and we see that he works at a cable company or a cable network. They're having some technical problems. The signal's glitching. All the channels are going staticky. His boss is played by the exuberant Harvey Fierstein, who tries to explain to him the problem.
You got a problem.
Did you try to switch transponder channels?
Oh, please. You think I'd be this panicked doing something simple?
Okay, let's point the dish at another satellite.
We tried that. It didn't work. It's almost as though they weren't even there. All right, we get out of here.
It's impossible.
And David is, I guess, an engineer or technical person who is going to have to try to dig into this and figure out what's going on. So now we'd make another quick cut. And we were out in the desert in a motorhome. And this is Russell Case and his children. The children are Miguel, Alicia, and Troy. Miguel is played by James Duval. Alicia is played by Lisa Jacob. And Troy is played by Giuseppe Andrews. Russell Case, the father, is played by Randy Quaid, the older brother of Dennis Quaid. Randy started acting in 1971 in The Last Picture Show. He was in a couple of movies, What's Up, Doc, Paper Moon, The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz, Breakout, Bound for Glory, Midnight Express. Just regular character work for the most part. National Lampoon Vacation. He played Cousin Eddie in 1983. Randy worked pretty steadily until early 2010s. Had some personal issues and hasn't been seen much. I think the only thing he's done since 2018, he did a movie in 2024 called A Christmas Letter. So in the extended edition, the cases have much more of a story. They don't really get into it in the theatrical cut, but in the extended edition, you find out that Troy has got some kind of problem, some kind of medical issue that requires constant medication. This is one of the reasons that Russ is under such stress, because this medication is expensive. Apparently, Russ married Miguel and Alicia's mother, and then they had Troy. So there's a lot of animosity between, especially Miguel and Russ. They kind of soft pedal this entire thing in the theatrical cut. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the cases, but he obviously becomes an important part at the end of the movie. So we see smaller ships detaching from the larger ship. They're entering the atmosphere. David figures out that there's a signal that they're transmitting and he can't block it, but he doesn't really have to because it's getting smaller every time it repeats itself. So eventually it's going to just disappear anyway. They have these really cool shots of these clouds full of fire as the ships are coming in. They're tracking them over multiple targets, over multiple cities. They send an AWAC into one of the clouds to see if they can see what's going on in there, and it flies right into a fireball. And then when that happens, they decide that they're going to start evacuations, but Tom is decided that he is not going to leave.
Alex, organize a military escort.
Mr. President, I strongly recommend we move you to a secure location immediately.
Connie, can we expect the same kind of panic we saw in Russia?
More than likely.
Mr. President, we can discuss this on the way.
I'm not leaving.
We have to maintain a working government.
I want you to get the vice president, the whole cabinet, and the joint chiefs and take them to a secured location. I'm staying. I don't want to add to a public hysteria that's going to cost
We meet the Secretary of Defense, Albert Nimzicki. I don't know where they came up with that name. This is James Rebhorn. Great character actor. Has been in over 100 films and TV shows and plays. Always plays either somebody like kind of annoying or like some kind of government official or lawyer or judge. It's a pretty common role for him, FBI agent. We find out that Russ has been telling a story that he was abducted by aliens when we cut to a scene in the diner out in the desert where they are. So we go back and forth, back to the White House again. Fun fact, one of the members of the president's staff is Robert Pine, father of Chris Pine. And then finally, 25 minutes into the movie, we meet our leading top-billed actor, Will Smith, and Vivica Fox. Will is playing Captain Stephen Heller, United States Marine Corps. Vivica Fox is playing Jasmine Dubrow, who is Stephen Hiller's girlfriend. And they are woken up by the shaking of a spaceship flying over Los Angeles. By the way, we keep getting these countdowns, so this is July 3rd that we are on now. So let's talk about Will Smith, born and raised in West Philadelphia. Found fame in the late 80s as a rapper under the name, I think the group was DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Big song they had was called Parents Just Don't Understand. Will Smith, as the Fresh Prince, won the first ever Grammy Award for a rap performance. Buckets of charisma this guy has, and he translated that into television, starring in the smash hit sitcom Fresh Prince of Bel-Air from 1990 to 1996. His first film was the action comedy Bad Boys, but it is this film that really kind of puts him on the map, I think. Obviously, he would go on to just dominate the box office for the next 2 decades with hints like Men in Black, Pursuit of Happiness, Ali, and then eventually would go on to win an Academy Award for Best Actor for his role in the movie King Richard. Not without a little controversy at that Academy Awards. Vivica Fox began her career as a dancer on Soul Train in 1982. She had roles on soap operas Days of Our Lives and Generations. She was in the sitcom Out All Night in the early 90s with Patti LaBelle. Her first film was in 1989. She had a small role in the Oliver Stone film Born on the 4th of July. She had a small role in a film called Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood, which was with the Wayans brothers, Shauna and Marlon. And this is her third film and probably her first big role. And continuing to work now. She had two films come out in 2025. There's one of her, as I'm recording this, one of her films is in the theaters, Is God Is. She's got another movie coming out this year and a couple more that are in production or in post-production. So pretty solid career for Vivica Fox. Anyway, so the ships, there's this big sequence, probably one of the most famous sequences in the movie where the ships come out of the clouds and reveal themselves as being these ginormous spaceships hovering over major cities like New York, Washington, Moscow, Los Angeles. This is all practical effects, by the way. Hiller thinks it's an earthquake until he looks out the window and sees, or goes out to get the paper, and then he sees the ship. Meanwhile, David has figured out that the signal is related to these ships. Obviously, they're coming. And he figures out that the signal, because it's reducing, is some kind of countdown.
First, you strategically position your pieces. Then when the timing's right, you strike. See? They're positioning themselves all over the world, using this one signal to synchronize their efforts. In approximately 6 hours, the signal's going to disappear and the countdown's going to be over.
And then what?
Checkmate.
Oh my God.
President Whitmore makes an announcement to the nation. We find out that Connie is actually David's ex-wife. So David calls her to kind of warn her, but he can't get a hold of her. She's a little busy. There's mass panic. People are panicking. They're packing up their cars. They're trying to get out of the cities. We find out that Hiller is in the Marines and he's been recalled. So he's going to go to his base. He's going to find out what's going on. Jasmine is quite understandably panicking a little bit. He tries to calm her down.
Look, I really don't think they flew 90 billion light years to come down here and start a fight. And get all rowdy. Look, why don't you just relax? I'm gonna report to El Toro, find out what's going on.
In New York, David decides that he is going to go to Washington and try to find Connie. So he grabs his father, because his father has a car. I think it's a Plymouth. And they drive down to Washington. We find out that the First Lady is on a trip and she's in Los Angeles. This is Mary McDonnell. Mary McDonnell, obviously well known for her first big role as Stands with Fist in 1990's Dances with Wolves, which got her an Academy Award nomination. It was her third film. She also got a nomination for her role in Passion Fish. She's well known, obviously, as President Laura Roslin in Battlestar Galactica, Rose and Donnie Darko, Captain Sharon Rader in the series The Closer and its spin-off Major Crimes. Very tiny role in one of my favorite movies, Margin Call. And she is going to be in the upcoming Marvel television series Vision Quest in an undisclosed role. We cut back to a television interview with Russell Case, and he's freaking out because the aliens are back.
I was kidnapped by space aliens 10 years ago. They did all kinds of experiments on me. They've been studying us for years, finding out our weaknesses. We've got to stop them. They're going to kill us all.
Now, some people attribute his eccentric behavior to post-traumatic stress syndrome from his service as a pilot in Vietnam.
We find out that he's a former U.S. Air Force pilot with service in Vietnam. Miguel tries to leave and take his brother and sister with him and sneak away from Russell, but Russell finds them and thinks it's a good idea that they're leaving, so they all wind up leaving together along with a whole bunch of people in motorhomes and vans and trucks and stuff driving across the desert. There's another extended scene here in the extended cut about Troy and his medicine. Hiller gets to El Toro and we meet his wingman, Lieutenant Jimmy Wilder, who is played by Harry Connick Jr., famous jazz musician, piano player, singer. We find out that Hiller has applied to NASA to be an astronaut and has just gotten what turns out to be a rejection letter.
You want to do the honors for me, man?
You're a wuss.
Yeah, whatever. Shut up and read it.
It says, Captain Stephen Hiller, loser.
United States Marine Corps, blah, 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 blah.
We regret to inform you that despite your excellent record of service, I'm sorry, man. You know what you need to do?
And we find out from Jimmy that Jasmine is a stripper, and that's one of the things that's holding Hiller back. David and Julius get to DC. There's an extended version of that in the extended cut. But basically, he uses some electronic gizmos to hack into Connie's cell phone, and he calls her. So she brings him into the White House. They're sending a helicopter to try to signal one of the ships. And it's got some kind of big light arrays on it. And they're going to flashlights at it. I guess they saw Close Encounters. The helicopter immediately gets blown out of the sky. And now there's panic and chaos in the White House. And Connie yells at David to tell the president what he's found. And apparently the president and David have some history because David thought that Connie was cheating on him with Tom. And apparently he punched him at one point before he was president. But anyway, David explains what he sees going on.
Okay. Let's say that you wanted to coordinate with spaceships on different sides of the Earth. You couldn't send a direct signal, right?
You're talking about line of sight.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. The curve of the Earth prevents it. You'd need satellites to relay that signal in order to reach each ship. Well, I found a signal hidden inside our own satellite system.
So we see that there's people in Los Angeles on the roof of some of the tall buildings, notably the roof of today it's the U.S. Bank Tower, the big building in downtown Los Angeles. I don't think it was that then, including Jasmine's friend. We see them looking up at the ship, and the bottom of the ship opens up, and this giant beam comes shooting down out of the ship, destroys the building and destroys most of downtown Los Angeles. The same thing happens in New York because the building is right over the Empire State Building. By the way, this shot has ticked me off for the last 30 years because they show like a street leading right up to the Empire State Building. There is no street in Manhattan that ends at the Empire State Building. The Empire State Building is just sitting in the middle of a block. I know it's a nitpick, but they blow up the Empire State Building, and then we cut to the White House and they blow up the White House. The president's gotten out already. There's still people in the White House that are trying to get out on the helicopter, and the helicopter gets caught in the explosion. And then we see the explosion spreading throughout Washington as basically there's a sequence of it chasing Air Force One down the runway. We also see the Capitol Dome get blown up in the explosion. Again, all practical effects, all models with explosives in them. Apparently there's a lot of controversy over whether or not they could blow up the White House. The studio was having reservations about the idea of showing that on a film, but the producers won, and it's a iconic sequence, really. We find out that the First Lady is missing, that there are refugee camps left in the ruins of some of the cities. We see Jasmine trying to pick her way through Los Angeles. She had barely escaped the explosion by diving into like some side room in a tunnel, the 3rd Street tunnel in Los Angeles. And then the fighters at El Toro and elsewhere have launched. Hiller's squadron, the Black Knights, are on their way to engage the ships. And they get a little inspirational message from Harry Connick Jr.
I shouldn't have left her.
Don't worry about it, big man. I'm sure she got out of here before it happened.
Or, as the good Reverend would say, why we're on this particular mission, we'll never know. But I do know here today that the Black Knights will emerge victorious once again.
Amen, man.
Amen, Reverend.
And there's a dogfight, and we find out that the ships have electronic shields so they can't shoot missiles at them. The big ships launch fighters, and we find out that they have shields so they can't shoot them down. And they're, so this kind of one-sided dogfight's going on. And Hiller and Jimmy are getting chased through a canyon, and Jimmy's ship eventually gets blown up, so Jimmy's dead. Hiller crashes his ship, but he also gets the ship that's following him to crash. Meanwhile, the other alien ships attack El Toro, so El Toro gets destroyed. On Air Force One, the president and the staff are discussing the possibility of nuking the ships And David and Julius overhear that, and they have a strong reaction to it because of the idea of nuking. And to be fair, Tom Whitmore doesn't like the idea either of nuking, population centers.
As many of our forces away from our bases as possible, but we've already sustained heavy losses.
I spoke with the Joint Chiefs when they arrived at NORAD. They agree we must launch a counteroffensive with a full nuclear strike.
Over American soil. You're saying at this point we should sacrifice more innocent American civilians. Is that right?
Sir, if we don't strike soon, there may not be much of an America left to defend.
Sir, they've taken out NORAD.
What?
It's gone, sir.
My God. The Vice President, Joint Chiefs.
And then Julius starts to accuse the president of, on behalf of the government, of basically hiding the truth and just talking about how you guys knew that this was going to happen and you guys had the aliens out at Area 51.
Area 51, right? Area 51. You knew then, and you did nothing.
Sir, regardless of what you may have read in the tabloids, there have never been any spacecraft recovered by our government. Take my word for it. There's no Area 51. There's no recovered spaceship.
Excuse me, Mr. President. That's not entirely accurate. What? Which part?
And so we find out that Tom didn't even know about it. And the Secretary of Defense was hiding it from him so he had plausible deniability. Hiller, meanwhile, has knocked out one of the aliens. We see a brief glimpse of one of the aliens with the tentacles and this big face mask. And Hiller is able to knock him out or knock it out. And then he's dragging it across the desert. And apparently it's got quite the odor.
This will be my weekend off. But no. You got me out here dragging your heavy ass through the burning desert with your dreadlocks sticking out the back of my parachute. You gotta come down here with an attitude, acting all big and bad. And what the hell is that smell? I could have been at a barbecue!
He comes across the convoy of all the campers and everything and hooks up with Russ Case and the rest of them and says that he saw a base off in the distance. And so they start to head to that, which is going to turn out to be the same place that Air Force One is going, which is Area 51 out in the Nevada desert. He arrives down there. We see Major Mitchell, who is the commanding officer of Area 51, who is played by Adam Baldwin. And we meet the head scientist of Area 51, Dr. Brackish Oaken, who is played by Brent Spiner, best known as Data on Star Trek The Next Generation.
This is Dr. Oaken. He's been heading up the research department on this project for the last 15 years.
How do you do? Mr. President.
Wow. What a pleasure. As you can imagine, they don't let us out much.
I can understand that.
Well, guess you'd like to see the big tamale, huh? Follow me.
And so we find out that they do, in fact, have an alien ship that had crashed in the 1960s, and they've been studying it. But when the alien ships showed up, everything started to turn on in the spaceship that they had in the cave. And we find out that not only do they have a spaceship, but they actually have aliens themselves.
You said you can repair their technology. Can you tell us anything useful about them?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, they're not all that dissimilar from us. Breathes oxygen, comparable tolerances to heat, cold. Probably why they're interested in our planet. Hey. You guys want to see them?
So they have 3 aliens. They're dead, obviously. They have 3 alien bodies. They find out that they don't have any vocal cords, that they use telepathy. Tom asks David to see if he can go over what they've learned and see if he could figure out something. Meanwhile, Hiller arrives at the gate with all the campers and the aliens, and obviously it's a top secret facility. They don't want to let him in.
Captain Stephen Hiller, United States Marine Corps. I'm sorry, Captain. This is a restricted area. I can't let you pass without clearance. Okay. Come here. You want to see my clearance? Maybe I'll just leave this here with you.
Let him pass.
Let him pass.
Get the hell out of the way.
So they wind up letting everybody in, and they all get in there. And again, another extended scene in the extended cut where Russ is desperate to he's trying to ask people for medication for his child, for Troy. So more cities are destroyed. We see the ships are having destroyed the cities that they were originally over, are moving to new cities. And we find out that within, I think it's 36 hours, every major city on Earth will be destroyed.
We learned that NATO and Western Allied installations were the first to be taken out. Then we were hit. They knew exactly where and how to hit us.
And our forces?
We're down to 15%. If you calculate the time it takes to destroy a city and move on, we're looking at the worldwide destruction of every major city in the next 36 hours.
We're being exterminated.
We see Jasmine has made her way to El Toro. There's this whole side quest of her getting out of Los Angeles and finding a truck and getting to El Toro and seeing that the base is destroyed. They're going to do an autopsy on the alien that Hiller's brought and see what they can find out from that. So they think the alien's dead, but the alien's not dead. It's just in its suit, and they open up the suit, and the alien comes out, grabs Oaken, and uses him telepathically as kind of a mouthpiece. And so Whitmore tries to have a conversation with it, negotiate with it.
There is much we can learn from each other if we can negotiate a truce. We can find a way to coexist. Can there be a peace between us?
No peace.
What is it you want us to do?
And then the alien tries to link telepathically with Whitmore, and he is able to see what the plan of the aliens is going to be.
Are you all right? I saw his thoughts. I saw what they're planning to do. They're like locusts. They're moving from planet to planet. Their whole civilization. After they've consumed every natural resource, they move on. And we're next.
So they decide they're going to, in fact, use nukes and try to blow the ships up. Connie and David have a little moment where they kind of get back together a little bit, and a little moment of tenderness there. Hiller steals a helicopter to go back to El Toro to try to find Jasmine, which he does. And so he brings her and her son and the first lady back to Area 51. They decide they're going to nuke the ship over Houston. That turns out not to work. We find out the first lady is fatally injured, so she's going to wind up and die. David winds up getting drunk because he doesn't really see a kind of way out of it, but Julius and David have this conversation, and Julius says something to David about catching cold, and that obviously gives David an idea. And so now they have a demo with a pistol, and Major Mitchell is asked to try to shoot a soda can that's been placed on the enemy ship with his pistol, and he can't because it's got a shield. And then David does something on his computer, and then he takes another shot, and he's able to knock it off because David was able to knock out his shield with his 1995 Apple laptop. So then they give everybody their plan. David and the guys he's been working with, they give their plan as to what's going to need to happen.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. Just how exactly do we infect the mothership with this virus?
We're going to have to fly their alien craft out of our atmosphere and dock with it. We can enter here, as shown in the satellite photos. We then upload the virus. We then set off some kind of explosion, which will disable it, and that'll disorient the smaller ships below, and that could buy it, I think, at least some time to take them out, take them down, do your stuff.
So Hiller volunteers to be the pilot. David demonstrates that the enemy ship is in fact operable, and it can fly under its own power. And so Whitmore decides, okay, let's do this. He winds up firing Nimziki because he's just kind of a weasel. They put a call out for pilots because they are, a lot of the pilots have gotten killed. And so they're shorthanded for pilots. And they start using Morse code to send a plan around the world so that all the other pockets of resistance and leftover military can coordinate an attack. They've got a group of people who are pilots who they're gonna send up, and Mitchell starts to interview them, and the first guy he interviews is Russ.
All right, listen up. Before we can begin, we're going to have to get a little background information on your flight experience. Let's start with you.
Me? Well, I'm Russell K. Sir. And after Nam, I got into crop dusting, and been doing that ever since. On a personal note, sir, I'd just like to add that ever since I was kidnapped by aliens 10 years ago, I've been dying for some payback, and I just want you to know that...
And we have a wedding with Hiller and Jasmine are getting married, and David and Connie are going to be their witnesses. And the officiant at this wedding is a Air Force chaplain, and he is played by Rance Howard, who is the father of director Ron Howard and his brother Clint Howard, and grandfather to Bryce Howard. I don't know how he wound up in there. And then they're ready to go, and right before they launch, Tom Whitmore gives what is maybe one of the most iconic pre-battle speeches in all of American cinema history.
We're fighting for our right to live, to exist. And should we win the day, the 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday, but as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
So Hiller and David get into the alien ship. They're getting themselves ready to go, and they have a little hiccup in the plan when Hiller doesn't really know how the controls work.
I was going to do this the whole way.
Just make sure your seat backs and tray tables are in their upright and locked position.
Yeah. Is it?
Rock and roll.
Oops. Oops. What does that mean? What do you mean?
No, I got it. Some jerk didn't put...
I know what I
got it, though.
mean. When I say oops, what do you mean saying oops there?
Well, you say we try that one again, huh?
Yes, without the oops.
But anyway, they managed to get the ship out and launched. We find out that one of the motherships or one of the big attack ships is headed for Area 51, that they've figured out that the base is there. So now we're on the clock. Mitchell brings the people inside, all the people from the camper caravan. They all get inside the base. Apparently there's a big cave in the mountain. Hiller and David get up into the mothership, and they're able to dock with it as according to the plan, and they're able to upload the virus. How does this thing work? I have no idea. How are they able to communicate with this? So these guys traveled all the way across the galaxy, and they don't have antivirus software? Their ports are wide open, so some guy with a mid-90s laptop can just kind of hack into it with a computer virus that he write it in C+? I don't know, it's just one of those things that you kind of go with. But anyway, the virus works. The shields on the ship come down. We find out that Tom Whitmore has decided that he is going to fly himself. He's going to lead the group from Area 51 because he's a pilot, and that's what he does best. They take one set of shots at the ship, and nothing happens, and he decides he wants to give it another go.
Hold on, Command. I want another shot at it. Sir, I strongly recommend you disengage. Eagle 1. Fox 3.
Squadron leaders, fire at will. Fire
So the shields are down and they're able to shoot and they're firing and they're causing damage to the ships, but not enough because these things are absolutely massive. The ship is getting ready to fire its primary weapon. The bottom opens up. Whitmore tries to take a shot at it. He misses the shot. And nobody else has got any rockets left. Nobody's got any missiles except for our man, Russell Case, who comes flying in his ship. Now, originally, when they filmed this, there wasn't the training montage and there wasn't the whole, we're going to put you in F-18s. This was Russell just shows up in his biplane and he flies into the weapon on the ship. And that did not test well with audiences. So they reconceived this whole idea and wound up putting Russ in one of the F-18s and giving him a missile that jams, and he winds up doing the same thing, but he flies into the weapon and kind of saves the day.
Box 2! It's jammed! It won't fire! Damn it! Do me a favor. Tell my children I love them very much. All right, you alien assholes! In the words of my generation, up yours!
So the ship is destroyed, and they send the signal out to the other, militaries around the world on how to destroy the ships. Meanwhile, David and Hiller are trying to make their way back. They had gotten stuck in the mothership, but they were able to get out just before the nuke blew up. But the ship that they're flying is kind of damaged, and it winds up kind of crashing in the desert. All the big attack ships are crashed. The mothership is blown up. And then there's a scene of, a Jeep driving across the desert, very, very much like the end of The Right Stuff. Jasmine and Connie are in the Jeep with some other people, with Tom and some other people, and David and Hiller are walking across the desert, smoking their cigars. I think the victory dance is what Hiller calls them. Tom goes up to David and congratulates him on a mission well done.
David, not bad.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Not too bad at all.
Oh, so this is healthy?
Oh, I can get used to it.
And that is the end of Independence Day. So this was a very heavily promoted film. They did a Super Bowl campaign for this. In fact, it was really the first big Super Bowl marketing campaign for a movie. Fox pulled off a brilliant, aggressive marketing campaign. They paid a huge amount of money for a teaser trailer that featured no plot, no dialogue, and no actors for Super Bowl 30. It just showed a shadow falling over a city and a 5-second clip of the White House blowing up, and that was it. And they paid a huge amount of money for it. The public was completely shocked by it. People were talking about it for months because we had no idea what this movie was. Like, we just saw that and we're like, what is this? We need to see this movie. And it really set the tone for the next 30 years of big movie trailers dropping during the Super Bowl. So it has premiere on June 25th, 1996. It was then screened at the White House for Bill and Hillary Clinton. And then it had its wide release in previews on July 2nd. And to say it was a success is kind of a massive understatement. Its first 5 days of release in the U.S., it brought in $104 million. It went on to gross $306.1 million domestically and $511.2 million internationally, for a total of $817 million, which in 1996 was completely unheard of. And this is a film with a $75 million budget. It was obviously the highest grossing film of 1996, and at the time of its release, it was the second highest grossing film of all time, right behind Jurassic Park. Critic reception was a bit mixed, although typically positive. Critics thought that the film's revolutionary visual effects and fast-paced action sequences, the score, and the charisma of Will Smith were really, really high points in the film. Some critics kind of turned their noses up at the movie and called it, saying the dialogue was clunky, the characters were all cliches, and the plot was very predictable, which, it kind of is. It's a very high concept movie. It's got a 69 on Rotten Tomatoes, a 59 on Metacritic, and an A on CinemaScore. But of course, we really only care about Roger Ebert here. Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars, saying it was a very incredibly fun piece of summer entertainment, but he definitely did poke a lot of fun at the movie. He says, and I quote, "As the hours and minutes ticked towards the Armageddon, I only had one question. Why are the aliens using hours and minutes? Does their home planet have exactly the same length of day and year as ours? How very nice." I guess that's a good point. But he went on to say, "I only observed that it is a wonder these aliens have traveled across uncounted light years of space and have never thought of a computer virus protection program. My theory is that any aliens who could be taken by this particular plan probably arrived here after pedaling across space on bicycles." But he also said, it is in the tradition of silly summer fun, and on that level, I kind of liked it. So there you go. At the 69th Academy Awards in 1997, Independence Day took home an Oscar for Best Visual Effects, which went to Volker Engel, Douglas Smith, and Clay Penny and Joe Viscoso. It was nominated for Best Sound. It swept the Saturn Awards, winning Best Science Fiction Film, Best Director, and Best Special Effects. It won a Kids' Choice Award for Favorite Movie and an MTV Movie Award for Best Kiss between Will Smith and Vivica Fox. There were books that were written based on it. There was a radio play that was staged. There were video games, toys, obviously. And I will mention the fact that there was a sequel in 2016, and that is all I will say about that. Looking back at Independence Day, it's been 30 years. Is it a perfect cinematic masterpiece? No, of course not. The dialogue is cheesy. The patriotism is cranked up to 11, and the idea that a dial-up laptop could hack an interstellar mothership is ridiculous. But, man, this movie does have soul. It represents the absolute pinnacle of 1990s blockbuster filmmaking, when practical miniatures felt tangible, when movie stars were larger than life, and going to the theater felt like a genuine event. So that is it for Independence Day. We have another alien invasion movie coming down the pike, just in time to get our whistles wet for Disclosure Day. So thanks for listening, and we'll check you out later.